Hey y'all, this is Delegate Carl Anderton Jr., aka Cornbread, representing beautiful Wycomico County in the Maryland House of Delegates. When I want to know what's going on in our counties, I listen to the Conduit Street Report. You should too. Well, I guess you are. You're listening now.
Hello and welcome to the Conduit Street Podcast. Kevin Kinnally today. No Michael Sanderson running solo. It's Thursday, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day in the afternoon. We are approaching crossover, so everybody is running around like a chicken with their head cut off at this point. So I'm going to run it solo. Today we're going to talk all about elections. We're going to get into the biggest news around town. The election date for the primary has been moved back 3 weeks. A lot of talk, a lot of news there. But we also want to talk about cybersecurity issues, the growing animosity toward election administrators, changes in campaign finance, really nerdy stuff, but actually really cool, talking about like Bitcoin and things like that. And to do this, to join me today, I have the expert on all things elections, Jared DeMarinis, the director of Candidacy and campaign finance at the State Board of Elections. Jared, thanks so much for joining us, especially with the news that we got just this week.
Yes, well, thank you, Kevin, for inviting me on this podcast. I appreciate that. And I look forward to future podcasts as well from you. This has always been a nice little one here. But well, besides St. Patrick's Day, it's also the first day of the March Madness, too.
That's right.
Hopefully brackets will not be blown up on the first day. So,
hopefully the luck of the Irish is with you there, Jared.
Exactly. So,
all right. So, Jared, I mean, to jump in here.
Yeah.
So you not only deal with all the campaign finance stuff, and we can get into that a little bit, but you also, part of your job, I think, is really cool. You get to meet everybody who's running for statewide office, right? Like they have to come in and see you to file their paperwork. And obviously that means you've been really busy with that too, as we gear up toward the primary election and this election cycle generally.
Yes, I would say that's one of the most unique features of my job is that candidates for governor, members of the General Assembly, comptroller, AG, all the judicial candidates, they all have to come in person and file in my office. It was definitely easier pre-COVID when they used to just come in and file. We've made some adjustments in this post-COVID world here. Now we force everyone to make an appointment beforehand and have all the necessary paperwork done. So it's a little bit smoother and less, I would say, less time spending at the State Board of Elections. Right. But it's still one of the more neat features of the job here.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really cool, but again, everybody from across the state, they have to come see Jared if they want to file, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I would have to say you have a lot of, interesting individuals that seek public office. Not only, you have the ones that from, the governor to, the people that are perpetual candidates, and there's always, it's just a fun experience. And one of the best experiences that I always enjoy, and it's definitely more of an insider, I would say, deadline, similar to like a sine die, which was the candidate filing deadline, right, where we stay open to 9 o'clock at night. And you always see who's coming in at the last second trying to file and what stunning, challenge will be made on that day. This candidate filing deadline has now been moved a couple of times now. It was February 22nd, then it was moved to March 22nd, and now currently it is April 15th. So that has become a moving target a little bit, but that day has always been a great day. And I kind of tweet out, how many more hours we have to work. You have to run in, and you always get a good one or two good candidates that come in just at like 8:45, just trying to make that last second deadline, to be officially a candidate for the primary election.
Right. That's pretty, yeah, I remember those days, and obviously COVID has sort of upended that, and now moving the deadlines. Certainly people have more time to make that decision now, but you're getting into what I want to get into next. And that is the biggest news around town this week. The bomb went off, right? And we got news that the election has been delayed, pushed back by 3 weeks. So, I mean, what's going on there? And, what immediate effects does that have, besides moving the filing deadline? We're moving it back now into July. So just walk through a little bit. And I want to give you this opportunity too, to tell people what's going on and where they can find more information if they need it, because again, you're the expert here and you're plugged in. So just what's going on, and how do you view this news in terms of what this means immediately?
Well, immediately, like I said, it impacts the candidate filing deadline. It is now April 15th. And so now there is more time for candidates to file for office. The other impact is it changes the campaign finance reporting schedule, because those were all tied to the election, which we have now updated and sent out to all the committees. So if they haven't received it, they should check their email and check in their campaign finance reporting system to see the updated schedule. There's, I would say, other impacts as well with a change in the election and the primary day. All that will be on our election calendar that will be posted on the website and with the local boards as well. I think I would say that the most immediate part here is that you want to take a look at the election officials here. They're very hardworking individuals that take a lot of pride in their job and try to make this a very successful election. And so they're working diligently right now to handle all the changes that are being thrown at them from the courts and from the legislature in a short time frame. So I just want to give a world of thanks to them, and their work is very important, and they're just working tirelessly right now in making sure that this election is going to be the ability to be smooth, but have high level of confidence in the electoral process. And so they're there, making sure that when you go out and vote in July, that you can feel confident in its administration.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I know the state board is doing the same thing, and you all are doing everything you can. And look, the locals, I mean, the election was moved because we know there are challenges to maps, and that's beyond the control of you or the local election officials. So everybody's doing the best that they can. I agree. These people work extremely hard. They need information. Of course, they're anxious like everybody else. All the candidates are anxious. So I'm sure you feel that from all sides, right? And I know they all come to you and they want information. So trust me, I feel you there. And one of the things too that's interesting, we're moving the election back, but we've seen a big uptick, Jared, in mail-in balloting, right? And that's something that was really forced by the pandemic, although it's been talked about for years, and many states are ahead of Maryland in terms of when they've started to do it. But I have to say, I felt like the last election cycle, when it came to mail-in ballots and the ballot drop boxes that were ubiquitous, things worked really well. People seemed to like it. So we know, Jared, that people can already request mail-in ballots, right? So that's already happening. Talk about mail-in ballots a little bit and how you see it in terms of how it worked, how the ballot drop boxes worked, and whether or not you think this is something that's going to stick around. It is sticking around, at least for this cycle. What's the process now? Where are we with mail-in ballots, and how's it looking moving forward?
Sure. I think that the drop boxes, the ballot drop boxes, were definitely the image from the 2020 election, from the primary and from the general. The idea that they were all, like you said, they were ubiquitously placed across the counties, and people felt very confident in them, and they're here to stay. And the General Assembly last session basically codified where the placements would be for those ballot drop boxes in the future as well. So they're not going anywhere. I think the mail-in ballots, we always, in the past, prior to COVID, and you almost have to make this distinction here.
Right.
Normal prior pre-COVID elections, mail-in ballots usually consisted of between 5 to 6% of all the ballots that were cast. In 2020, in the primary, of course, that was an all mail-in election. And then in the general, we had the hybrid, and that consisted of 50% of the ballots were mail-in the general election. So there was it was taking hold in the general. This election for 22, everyone was mailed out an application to receive a mail-in ballot. We have received over 200,000 so far, which is greater than 2018 levels. So you can see from just that data point there that mail-in ballots are proving to be not only successful, but popular among the voters. I think with the election being moved as well to a July date, you're going to see more people maybe go to mail-in ballots for convenience sake because of vacations now and other factors that they're worried. So they can just you're going to see even, I think, a greater uptick in mail-in ballots for this election.
Yeah, and I mean, we've always had the no excuse absentee, right? So you could always request one, but now I think it's being made a lot easier. People are seeing that it can work, it's safe, it's effective, and yeah, I agree with you. I think moving forward, this is going to be a big part of how we vote. And again, Maryland's not the only one. There are several states, and I think COVID also forced other states, right, to start doing this more. There's been an uptick, but generally, I mean, we know it's safe, we know it's secure, it's worked really well. So we're going to see it for 22, and we're going to see it moving forward. And I guess, Jared, the real question just becomes like, is this more so like the future of elections? I know people talk about like voting online. That's a whole thing, right? I don't think we're ready for that yet. But we do know that generally the theme seems to be we're trying to make it easier, right? We're trying to get to people, make it easier for them. And we want to make sure everybody has the ability to go and vote, to cast their ballot in the best way that they can, that's the most convenient to them. And obviously, when you're in the middle of a pandemic, mail-in was the only way to go, at least for the primary. But I was really impressed with how the local boards, how the state board handled everything ultimately. And in 2020, things went off very, very well. I mean, there was a lot of moving parts. Things were changing all the time. So I have to give you and your shop, the state board, and all the local boards a lot of credit, because that was just a lot going on. And every day it seemed like there was a new curveball. So going through that, I mean, I was along for the ride just tangentially with our local boards and trying to keep up with everything and making sure they had what they needed. But I know you were literally in the middle of it, dealing with these curveballs every single day during the 2020 cycle. So I have to give you a lot of props. You and your team at the state board, I mean, you got through it and things went really, really well, in my opinion.
Oh, well, thank you. And I know that the state board, I mean, unbelievable, workers there, and, from top down is just, amazing people that always take pride in trying to make sure that Marylanders can have confidence in the election process. And I think that works between the state board and the local boards, and that the people that are employed there, they take, like I said before, enormous pride in their work, and that they understand this, I would say, the gravitas of what we do, which is, to ensure people's fundamental right to vote and to make sure that vote gets, processed and cast, and that when you come out of it, that these results are, correct, and that this election was conducted with integrity.
Absolutely. And just to pivot, another unfortunate change or trend that we've seen now, especially after 2020, and I guess over the past few years, it's been just this animosity, and generally the political climate has led to a lot of threats, intimidation against our local election officials. We've already talked about how important they are and the work that they do, but these folks are being harassed and they're getting terrible emails. They're getting threats against themselves and their families. People are sending things to them in the mail and online, and it's absolutely repulsive. But unfortunately, our election folks are bearing the brunt of this. We've just talked about our elections are secure, they're safe, but there's so much, fake news out there and so many people just stirring the pot. And unfortunately, our local election folks and, at the state board, I'm sure, are bearing the brunt of this. So I know this is something you're paying attention to. You're in the middle of it. You see it every day as well. I know you're also in touch with your folks across the country, your counterparts in other states. And actually, I know, Jared, you travel around the world to observe elections, and that's really cool too. But I mean, how concerning is this to you? It's certainly concerning to Mako, and we're seeing it, but you're more in the mix than we are. What are you hearing from other states, and what are you seeing locally when it comes to this environment where all of a sudden our election folks are the target of this animosity, hate, threats, intimidations?
It's a disturbing trend. I mean, it's completely uncalled for, and it's had a negative impact on the election official communities across the nation. I believe 1 in 5 of the election officials have either left or retired from their jobs recently. And that's a huge gap. We've even had some turnover in Maryland, but any of the newly appointed election directors or officials have had some election experience. So we've been fortunate in that regards. But it's like I said, disturbing in a sense that all they're trying to do and all we're trying to do is conduct and administer an election in accordance with the law. And we're just trying to do what we're tasked in doing, and to have personal threats or having your integrity questioned for political gain with no real, substance behind it, or just with disinformation about either the big lie or that fraud is rampant everywhere, is just it's just not good for the political discourse or just election administration. And it's undermining our democracy at an enormous rate. And you mentioned I do international elections and go overseas, and you can see how we used to be, or we always want to project ourselves to be that shining star of what a strong democracy looks like throughout the world. And we're supposed to be the ones that everyone is supposed to strive to. We're one of the oldest democracies in the world with, these hard and fast rules. And when people lose elections, there is no doubt that the person lost. Everyone accepts that loss and then moves on. And, and we don't have riots. We don't have coups over that, or that the election was tainted. And all this right now has come back as a disturbing trend that is taking hold in America. And so it's one of those things that the security of election officials is a concern for everyone, and our well-being, and it's just not right.
I couldn't agree more. And I mean, anytime anyone ever says anything to me about the security of our elections, or the intent of the people who run our elections, I mean, I immediately, it just makes my blood boil. And I mean, I know these people, these people, I know that they're in this because they care. I mean, this kind of work is technical, it's difficult, and you don't do it for any other reason other than you really do care, and you want to do the best that you can. And so unfortunately, people, like you said, have politicized that. And Mako, as I mentioned earlier, we certainly see it and we care about it a lot. We have an initiative bill this year, a legislative initiative to add protections for election administrators and health officers. Health officers also are bearing the brunt, of this during the pandemic. They had to make tough decisions to keep everybody safe, and unfortunately, people just take that to a whole new level in terms of their intentions, and they get upset. So this stuff is real. It's happening. I know there was an incident in Carroll County a few weeks ago where they received an envelope with what could have been, something like, a dangerous chemical, and it turned out to be not. But certainly you'd have to think that somebody did that on purpose to try and intimidate them. And again, like no one should have to deal with this. And you're in the middle of this cycle that's coming, and we're changing dates. So there's so much going on. We need to support our local and state election folks, and we're hoping that we can get that bill through. Because again, like you said, it's a really disturbing trend, and it's uncalled for. No one should be subjected to this kind of stuff, but especially people who are trying to make sure that we have free and fair elections and carry out, our democratic principles. So Jared, hopefully we can get that across the finish line and show everyone that we take this seriously in Maryland, and we're not going to let it happen.
Oh, I appreciate that. And I know that our election officials and the state board appreciates the idea of that initiative to protect us. Because what we do is, nonpartisan, we do our jobs, and, we just implement and administer the law, in that type of a fashion to make sure that everyone's vote counts.
So moving on, hopefully to maybe a lighter subject, Jared. Anything going on in the world of campaign finance? And that sounds really nerdy, but I promise there is some interesting stuff here. So that's another interesting part of your job, a big part of your job.
Yes.
That also, I'm sure, keeps you really busy with people trying to fill out their campaign finance reports and asking all these questions. But what is the trend? Anything this session that stands out to you? And what are you seeing generally in terms of what folks are asking and kind of the new trends out there when it comes to campaign finance?
Well, one of the biggest trends right now, I think, in the state of Maryland and it's basically county initiatives, has been the public financing programs. And we saw it take hold in Montgomery County. They were the first county to do it, and they did it last cycle in 2018. And now we have Montgomery and Howard for the 22 cycle. And in the 26 cycle, I think Prince George's, Baltimore County is coming on. I know that there was some sort of initiatives in Anne Arundel County. So this is kind of spreading throughout each of the counties, and each of the counties is having a little bit of a different program, but it seems to be taking hold and root. The success of it in Montgomery helped change the state program. This is one of the things that when they had this idea of giving the counties this authority to institute public financing programs, they wanted to see how well it took root in the counties, and the state has looked at it and changed the gubernatorial financing program to match more like the Montgomery Howard County model, which is these small dollar contributors and a cap of how much public funds can be released off of that with a high dollar amount match. So versus the old, I would say, program, which was more of an expenditure limit. So that's one of the newer trends there. And with these is that you see the ability to finance and have permanent financial support for these programs as well in both the county and the state level. So I think that's been a positive trend in campaigns and in campaign finance. The other part too in campaign finance has been this idea of new ways of getting technology in. And basically campaigns always like to do something that reaches the maximum amount of voters and is cheap. So what you see is campaigns trying to use, of course, social media because it's free, texting services, and also any sort of, I would say, newer methods for transferring funds. So what you get is with social media, you see, the use of Twitter, Facebook, of course, with Instagram. That's all considered, by the way, campaign material under Maryland law. And for all the elected officials or for all the candidates that are listening, requires an authority line on that front there.
Right.
Texting, when you start texting voters, information, and moving forward with trying to do a direct contact with them, that is still also campaign material and has to follow all the same rules with authority line on that. With the, I would say, newer forms of currency, there's always Bitcoins out there and cryptocurrency. We see a lot of those commercials now. I think it is a newer trend in acceptance, and its popularity is growing. I've heard and talked to candidates, not in Maryland, but outside, that they want to try to run their entire election based upon cryptocurrency. Maryland, we're not there yet, but I am looking into it and seeing how and what the implications are for using that. And I think the biggest thing is for any of activities that we get into campaigns or in campaign finance is the disclosure aspect. And that's of the paramount, I would say, concern for any sort of change or policy shift is, will this help disclosure and can it be audited afterwards to ensure what's on a campaign finance report is accurate? And
yeah,
so
I can imagine that would be difficult because that's an issue generally, is trying to untangle crypto, and it's hard to figure out sometimes and trace it back, right, and see exactly what's going on. So all these new technologies, we talk a lot about government always being a little bit behind when it comes to technology, and having to figure it out and write laws and develop policies to keep up with this stuff. So Bitcoin and crypto with elections, I can imagine that's something that you're going to have to take a hard look at and work with counterparts in other states who are looking into this and trying to make it work. It would seem to me I wouldn't want to be the first one, right? I wouldn't want to be the one to venture out and do this first. I think it makes sense to see how things work in other states and try and just keep an eye on what's going on, and then take best practices and make sure that we do it the right way here in Maryland. And it sounds like that's the approach you want to take as well.
Exactly. Yes. It's just, other people can lead the way there, but, and consult as many experts in the field as well. Another topic too is like this idea of these deep fakes, which is basically, there was a huge 60 Minutes piece on that and how they help spread disinformation, and campaigns are, not in Maryland, thankfully, but other places how they use these deep fakes to make candidates say or do things that they did not do in reality. And so, we have to take a look at it and how we can regulate it, and to help ensure the voters, when they're seeing or hearing images, that they understand what they're seeing, and so that they can make informed decisions at the ballot box. And I think that that's, one of the overall goals for regulations and for laws is to make sure in campaign finance, and when they regulate campaigns, is to make sure that the voters are making informed decisions as to, when selecting for public office.
Yeah, the deep fake stuff is really concerning. The technology is incredible in terms of how real they can make it. But I just saw a video of President Zelensky in Ukraine. It looked and sounded a lot like him. It was fake, but you can understand how that could present a huge problem, especially for something as important as elections, not only with candidates, trying to disparage each other, but also spreading bad information about election dates, deadlines, where you can vote. Like, you could see that being a real problem. And unfortunately, the technology's there. People are taking advantage of it. But I know it's something you all are dealing with and trying to figure out how to best handle that. But that's got to be top of mind. Every day it's something new, some new technology. And then, of course, Jared, cybersecurity, right? I mean, that right now where we sit, and as local governments too, the situation that's happening, with Russia and Ukraine, we understand that could pose a lot of problems in the short term in terms of cyber attacks coming from overseas. So that's got to be top of mind for you too, especially again, as you head into a primary election. What are your thoughts there? And are you hearing the same thing? And are you trying to prepare in the same way that I think a lot of local governments are right now because of what's happening overseas, even more so than normal? The situation right now is really bad. And it's something that I think we all have to be cognizant of. And especially, again, as we're moving toward elections, it's so important.
Well, I think, right, cybersecurity has always been, since the 2016 presidential election, upfront. And we have strong partnerships with our federal partners to help us, with websites and I would say making sure that our systems are very secure. We all know that, foreign attacks did occur in 2016 and most likely will continue to occur now with the war in the Ukraine. So yes, we are being, ever vigilant on that front to make sure that, and with that partnership with the federal level, I think is important. And, so we can pull our resources from state, local, and federal to, make elections a critical infrastructure.
Just like everything else, it takes a partnership, local, state, federal, a lot of people working on this. We have a lot of smart people, just getting the right people around the table to make sure that everybody's in the loop and everybody's on the same page and working together. That's how we get through this. That's how we keep things secure, not just for elections, but for everything that we do. So Jared, is there anything else on your mind that we haven't gotten to? I mean, while I have you, there's a million things I could ask, but anything else top of mind for you before I let you get out of here? Because again, it's St. Patrick's Day and things are bananas in Annapolis right now. But anything you want to close with before I let you go?
No, I just wanted to say thank you again for this. And if you have an opportunity to thank one of your local Board of Elections officials, please do so, because they are working really hard. And just sometimes even just saying thank you to them or just, good job will go a long way in this environment. So I think that it's just important as well. But thank you again for inviting me on, and good luck in all your pools and for the NCAA as well.
You too. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Michael's going to be upset he missed this one, but I'll let you go. And for all our listeners, if you enjoy the podcast, please go ahead and give us a follow on social media. You can also subscribe. That way, all of these episodes will be sent directly to you. I'll link all the information that Jared talked about here, but you can follow Mako and the Conduit Street Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and then, of course, the Conduit Street blog is your source for all things Annapolis. But for Jared DeMarinis, this is Kevin Kinnally signing off, and we will talk to you soon.